would mess up the actual title. Peter Flaherty is awesome with just baseball. He's one of the co-hosts of the Boys of Spring podcast. I've got that one right. Give me your title with the Catuit Kettleers in the Cape Cod Baseball League. And then you also do some scouting professionally, yeah?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one with the Kettleers. I'm the director of baseball operations. Basically, I just help out our head coach and GM in forming the roster, calling up players, seeing if they'd want to play for us, reaching out to advisors, college coaches. Really, I guess the Swiss Army knife of the organization. At least I hope I'm viewed that way.
Yeah.
And then also I do a little bit of associate scouting work with the Yankees in the Northeast, helping out our Northeast area scout, going up to college games, high school games, whoever might be of interest for the draft.
And one of the weapons in the Swiss Army knife is driving. So you're picking up a guy that might be a top 10 pick in this year's draft. The Cape season gets going very shortly, and you're going to grab Cam Collier, who's going to play for you guys for a couple of weeks until his name is called. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Driving is probably my best tool. I've got a lot of miles on the old Acura MDX out there, and
80 grade driver.
I hope so. I got a clean record. So
Good.
I'll be jetting it up to Providence tomorrow and scooping up Cam Collier and Kenya Huggins, two guys that we're really excited to have until the draft, and two guys that I know we view very highly and the industry views very highly. And I think they're going to help us win a lot of games.
Before we get to the college baseball talk, who was a player that you've driven before that you have either a funny story about or just someone that was just awesome to talk to?
The easy answer there, I got two. Carter Trice from Old Dominion and Nathan Martorella at Cal Berkeley. They were two guys who both with myself and with each other just clicked instantly. And when you get that instant connection, it's just a lot of fun. You become immediately loose. We've got so many stories from driving them around, whether it's Chick-fil-A or just like goofing off in the car. And those are two guys that I'll remember probably for the rest of my life. They're two of the funniest and talented baseball players that I've been around.
That's the beauty of the Cape. And not only do you get the most prized possessions in college baseball programs, but they also turn out to be pretty solid dudes. So summer on my Cape, I think, will long reign as the best summer of my entire life. And you get to do it every year. And you know what? F you for doing that. I'm jealous.
That's what I say, because it's like I recycle the same line at every single year, because I know in somehow, some way that each summer is going to be the best one of my life. So I mean, you know it from being up here for a summer. It's indescribable and unexplainable until you actually get to experience it. You can say, oh, it'll be the best. You'll make memories that'll last forever. These people will stick with you. And like going into it, you're gonna be like, yeah, sure. I've heard that one before, whether it's going to Syracuse or in high school, but you know, it really does. And it's a special league with a lot of special people. So I'm super lucky.
So as you can tell, Peter Flaherty's background is in player evaluation. He does it all the time with college baseball. We've got 64 teams that Peter Flaherty probably knows at least one thing about, which is going to be awesome. We're going to walk through the regionals rapid fire, and we're going to kind of sift out like the men from the boys, and then we'll get to the supers. We're pretty much going to walk through and hand pick with our expert a field that'll be in Omaha at TD Ameritrade Park. So we'll go rapid fire here. But Peter, Peter Apple, you got any more thoughts for Peter Flaherty before we hop into the field en masse?
I'm just excited to hop into the field because I have a lot of questions pertaining to a lot of these teams in the field, and I want to unpack Pete's mind. So it's Pete versus Pete, trying to build the ultimate college baseball bracket with Jack as well. But Pete and Pete sounds cooler.
Yeah, it does.
I think we'll do a good job.
Perfect.
I think we'll do a good job too.
I mean, let's start top left of this bracket, and I'm going to be filling it out on my iPad as well. I'm breaking
handy dandy.
I said to you guys via text that I think this is the Tennessee Invitational, and Ryan Miller, one of your co-hosts on the Boys of Spring podcast, told me that this might be the best college team that we've seen in our lives. Tennessee is 53-7. They are the 1 seed, obviously, in the Knoxville Regional. Georgia Tech is the 2, Campbell the 3, Alabama State the 4. Peter Flaherty, I mean, like, this is just Tennessee easy, right?
Yeah. So after that Kentucky series where they made Tennessee look a little bit human, I was a little bit wondering if it would turn into that less Tennessee Invitational, but they went into Hoover and just ran through it. And looking at that left pod, no disrespect to Campbell and Georgia Tech and Alabama State, who are all 3 quality clubs, I just don't see anyone beating Tennessee twice, let alone in Knoxville. if there's any team that can hit with Tennessee, it's probably Georgia Tech. But with that being said, they have to hit Tennessee's pitching, which is Chase Dolander, Blade Tidwell, Chase Burnt. I could literally name the entire Tennessee pitching staff.
Yeah.
So I've got Tennessee. And Campbell and Georgia Tech is a great 2-3 matchup with Zach Neto on Campbell, Thomas Harrington, those types of guys, and Georgia Tech's high-powered lineup. But man, it's just so tough. It's going to be so tough to beat this Tennessee team.
I will say I'm incredibly excited to watch this group of 4 because Georgia Tech can really hit with Kevin Parada, who's going to be a top 5 pick in the draft. Their catcher, he's got 26 bombs, 83 RBIs or something as a catcher. Unbelievable. You said it yourself, Zach Neto. And Campbell can really hit. I think they're in the upper echelon of home runs in college baseball as well. This is just going to be bombs away, but Tennessee just has too much pitching and they should zoom past this, but it's going to be really fun to watch because there's going to be a ton of offense.
How does Dolander look as a pro prospect?
I might be bullish on him. There's a chance that he's the first pitcher selected off the draft board next year in 2023. And that could be 1-1. He's that good. And I've been sending video in our group chat all weekend and spamming it with college baseball. Their 8-hole hitter, Tennessee, is a kid named Drew Burke. And he's got maybe the most raw power of anyone in the country. For anyone listening or watching, do yourself a favor, look up Drew Burke, even on Twitter. You'll see his swing and you'll be hooked. And then that goes without saying, again, just so I could name their whole pitching staff, they're the perfect team that exemplifies and lives up to that with no holes, whether it be on the mound. The lineup is just such a long and talented lineup with Beck and Gilbert. And you look at their coaching staff and Tony Vitello and the rest of that group, that's a bunch that they've got swagger. You want to play for him. Tony Vitello gets into the games. He fights for his guys. They have the perfect mix from top to bottom to not only win it all this year, but to dominate the college baseball landscape. I think for years to come, they might not win 53 games 5 years in a row.
Yeah.
But we're going to be talking about Tennessee baseball for probably the next decade.
Yeah. So Tennessee's obviously the number 1 national seed. The number 16 national seed is Georgia Southern. And that pod includes Georgia Southern, who was a 40-win team again, 40-18. Notre Dame is the 2 at 35-14. Texas Tech is the 3. UNC Greensboro is the 4. I don't know much about this pod. I know that Notre Dame was really good last year. I know that they continued.
Yeah. I have a quick question too. In my opinion, this seems like the weakest group of 4 out of all the groups of 4. Am I wrong there? Because Notre Dame is pretty good. Texas Tech is pretty good, but Georgia Southern doesn't scare me either. That was my read, that this is probably the weakest group of 4 out of all of them.
So when looking at it, I think that Notre Dame, honestly, they should have been a host. I don't know what team you take out to replace them with. You could even make the argument that you swap Notre Dame and Georgia Southern.
Right.
But I think Notre Dame's a really good team. Texas Tech they've obviously got Jace Young. They just don't have the depth that they've had in years past in the Tim Tadlock era. But that's a little bit of a tough draw down there for Georgia Southern, who is a good team. But if you look at it, Tennessee swept them in the first weekend pretty easily. And they ended up being a host. So I think that whoever makes it out of this pod is just going to fall victim to Tennessee. And with that being said, I've got Notre Dame. They're playing really good baseball. Link Jarrett's a great head coach. They have a good pitching staff and they're experienced. They don't really have that headline bat or arm that you look at on other teams and you're like, hey, Tennessee has Chase Dolander. Notre Dame is kind of a collection of experienced guys. On the mound, they've got Liam Simon, who's probably their best prospect. And then it's a bunch of older experienced guys. They've got Jack Brannigan, who's a 2-way, Brooks Coatsy, and then a couple of freshman arms who've stepped up, Jack Finley and Roman Kimball. So I think Notre Dame's going to come out of this pod and head on down to Knoxville.
One quick question before we move on to the next regional. How does Texas Tech travel typically? Because you mentioned Jace Young. He's the younger brother of Josh Young, who, if he didn't tear his labrum, would be knocking on the door of the Texas Rangers and would probably already be there. Jace Young is a first-round pick. Texas Tech obviously has talent. It's at Georgia Southern. Obviously, Georgia Southern is going to be the school that draws the most people, but does Texas Tech draw like an SEC school?
That's a great question to ask, and it's an underrated variable, which is kind of bringing that home field advantage to wherever you are. Texas Tech has a great fan base. They fill up their stadium really well. They travel well. So, and Georgia Southern's a reasonably pretty.
It's a smaller school.
Yeah, it's an easy regional to get to if you're not hosting out, even though they're out in Lubbock. I think that they'd be more willing to travel there than up to Corvallis, Oregon. So no, I think they'll travel well. And that 3-2 matchup, I think I'll stick a heavy label on it early. I think whoever wins that 3-2 matchup between Texas Tech and Notre Dame is going to win the regional.
How about it?
Yeah, I like that. I think it's going to be a really good baseball game. It's going to be really that was the most like 8-year-old phrasing of all time.
No,
but it's
going
to be a really well played game. Two teams with a lot of good players. I give the slight edge to Notre Dame. I think they've got a little more pitching that they can neutralize that top of the Texas Tech lineup with Young and Kurt Wilson. So I've got Notre Dame winning that game and then winning the regional over Georgia Southern.
All right, next one. It's in Austin. Texas is they're the 9 national seed. So Texas is 42-19. And if I had to power rank nicknames in college baseball right now, number 3 is Tommy Tanks on NC State, who unfortunately got left out. Number 2 is Sonny DeShera in Auburn. And number 1 is the Hispanic Titanic, Ivan Melendez. That is a kick-ass nickname. So Ivan Melendez and Texas are hosting Louisiana Tech, Dallas Baptist, and Air Force. Peter Apple mentioned that this was one of the weaker regionals the Georgia Southern was. I think this has to be one of the stronger ones, right?
Yeah, no, well, first off on the nicknames, I think the Hispanic Titanic, I think it sets the bar for
yeah, agreed.
There's no nickname more perfect. And the fact that he lives up to it by hitting 405 with 29 pumps.
Yeah,
that makes it even better. So I think this is a really good regional and it's not your typical 4 seed with Air Force. We saw Air Force go down to Texas for a midweek series of Tuesday, Wednesday. Now, obviously Air Force didn't see the Pete Hansons on the Texas pitching staff, but they hit with Texas and they beat Texas one game and they honestly had the other game for the taking. So Texas is going to be on high alert, but when you talk about fans and home field advantage, I think at the Dish, it's about as big a home field advantage as you can get. Those fans are fantastic. They're into every single game and it's going to be all burnt orange across there. And what I think Air Force, they're going to throw Paul Skeens on the mound. I know that, who is probably the best two-way player in the country. He also catches for them. He's hitting .330 with 10 jacks, and on the mound, he's got a 2.70 ERA as a Friday guy, and he's just a fantastic player. I think that he's going to give him a really good outing. I just don't know if actually, you know what? Air Force might be able to hit. I just think Pete Hanson's is as talented an arm as you can find in the Big 12, and Texas is going to be all fired up because of the home field, and they want to get back to Omaha. But I think this is going to be a really close 1-4 game, and I think Texas wins that. DBU and La Tech won the Conference USA, which for my money, it's a slept on conference. I think there's a great
conference.
Yeah. I think there's an argument to be made that UT San Antonio and Old Dominion should have been in the field, but they got left out. And Dallas Baptist has been one of the best, if not the best mid-major school in college baseball for a while now. So
20 years.
Yeah, that's going to be a great game. But again, I think like we saw with the Knoxville Regional, I think there's a chance that they just run into a roadblock with Texas and feeding off of that home crowd. But I would not be shocked at all if Dallas Baptist comes out of this region. I think that they're a very good team. They played a lot of very good teams, and so they're no stranger to going into a hostile environment of one of these bigger schools. But I've got Texas, but they're not going to cruise to it. I think that they may lose a game. I think there might be a decisive game 3 in that regional championship.
Yeah.
So I've got Texas by the skin of their teeth going to a super regional.
And Pete, you and I were big fans of Texas at the beginning of the year. Texas was my team to win it all. And I think the loss of Tanner Witt, the great right-handed pitcher for Texas, definitely hurt them. Do you see that hurting them down the line as well? Because you're going to need pitching to win this. And although they're going to hit Ivan Melendez, I mean, we should talk about him as having one of the greatest college baseball seasons in the past decade or two, similar to Posey, with FSU, or similar to Chris Bryant. Those kind of seasons, that's what Ivan Melendez is putting up. But I feel like the loss of Tanner Witt could come back to bite them, even though the Texas pitching staff is strong. I just feel like when you're going to go face the Tennessees of the world, you're going to face some of the best college teams, that loss is going to be a big one.
Don't have to do it till the supers, right?
True.
Yeah,
they won't. Yeah.
I think anytime where you take a huge piece of what would make up, say, your pitching depth, if you take that out of the equation, you might not necessarily feel that in the regular season because you have that set schedule of you got your weekend series, then a midweek and all this, and you kind of get in a routine where there aren't too many variables. But when you throw that out the window and you're playing, maybe 4 games in 4 days, 5 in 7 days, something along the lines of that, I think it's going to catch up to you, where when you throw your guys like Lucas Gordon and Pete Hansen and they need 4 to 5 days of rest, or you want to roll with them on short days rest, I know for a fact that they're thinking, man, if we had Tanner Witt here, we'd be way better off because we saved one of these guys. And their bullpen hasn't exactly been the stablest of bullpens. Like, I think to get by Air Force, and I'm going to stick with my Texas pick, they're going to need a really quality start I think that they might go with Lucas Gordon, but I think they'll go with Pete Hansen, their proven experienced guy. They're going to need a really good start out of him, I think, to beat Air Force, because they can really hit. And looking at this Texas bullpen, they've been a little shaky throughout the year. Aaron Nixon, their All-American closer, hasn't quite been able to find his groove, but he's a guy who has the stuff that is as lights out as anyone in the country. So long-winded answer short, I think that they're going to feel the loss of Tanner Witt probably as they get into a super regional, assuming they make it there.
This one's going to be tough. East Carolina is the 1. They're 42-18. Virginia is the 2. They can swing it. Which Geloff is that? Jake or Zach?
Jake, and and Zach can freaking rake. And Jake might be on par with him. He's that
Jake
good.
might be the best hitter in the country right now. I mean, probably not because he got Jake Berry, but oh my God, can he rake?
You said Berry? No, it's Melendez.
Oh yeah, Melendez too, of course.
Yeah, dude.
No, but man, there are a lot of good hitters in the country, by the way, not to aside. There are a lot of really good hitters.
It's a big country.
Yeah, but exactly. No, Jake is awesome. And in this regional, like you said, man, I had this one circled as it's going to be it's just going to be a knockout, drag out regional.
You got East Carolina as the 1, Virginia the 2, Coastal as the 3, and we know what Coastal can do. And then you got Coppin State as the 4. Coppin State was 24-28. They're kind of a rollover, but everybody else, I mean, come on, man,
loaded.
Yeah, no, and this is a regional where especially any of these 1 through 3 seeds, I think obviously ECU could very well win it. But there's a very valid argument to be made for Coastal to win it. They're one of the hottest teams in the country. We saw it when they won it all in 2016. They came into the tournament hot, and they just kept rolling. But looking at this, I like Virginia a lot. They obviously got off to that roaring start that vaulted them into the top 3 to 5 in everyone's rankings. Then they scuffled a bit in ACC play. You kind of saw them, maybe not display the pitching depth that they've had. But I really I don't know why, I really like Virginia coming out of this region. Brian O'Connor's a great coach. That's not to knock Cliff Godwin, because again, if you want to talk about fans and proven teams, look no further than ECU. But I like Virginia a lot. When you look at their lineup obviously it starts with Jake Geloff, but they're deep. You can't compare anyone to Tennessee, but that's another lineup that's really long. You've got Geloff, Saki, Griffin O'Farrell, Kyle Teal, Chris Newell. So it's a lineup that's going to wear on a pitching staff. And I think that they can get by a really good Coastal Carolina team. No disrespect to Coppin State. I think ECU wins that game. Fairly
10-0.
Jack, I'm surprised. Jack, I'm surprised Kyle Guy hasn't made his way onto the Virginia baseball team, considering that he played at Virginia in college basketball for about 9 years. I feel like he'd find his way onto the baseball team.
Wait, he tied Jerome and Jay Huff was the. I mean, DeAndre Hunter was an obvious one and done.
But Kyle Guy has legit played 9 years for that school.
Well, he's gone now. He's been with the Kings for a minute.
They might not have Kyle Guy, but you know who they do have? They've got the quarterback, Jay Woolfolk, who's the quarterback of the football team. Yeah.
He plays baseball too?
Yeah, he throws meaningful innings for the staff too. He's thrown, I think, 35 innings this year. And he's really good. Obviously, he's got a stupid good arm.
Yeah, I had no idea that he played baseball as well. Let's go to College Station here. So we've got Virginia coming out of that.
Yes, I have UVA.
I also love how you keep on referencing the head coaches because obviously on the Cape, you got to be on their good side. So, wink, wink.
You see right there. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that. What I'm doing.
College Station, that's A&M as the 1. They're 37-18. TCU as the 2. Louisiana as the 3. That's the Ragin' Cajuns, previously known as UL Lafayette. And Oral Roberts, 38-18. They are the 4 seed in that regional.
Yeah, well, first you guys start with the coach. No, I'm kidding. This is a good regional. Oral Roberts is actually a sneaky good team. Shout out Dustin Demeter.
Yeah, shout out our guys.
Yeah, exactly. Oral Roberts is a 4 seed that I think could actually pose some trouble to A&M. As good as A&M was this year, and the turnaround was incredible. You know, from not being, I think they didn't make a regional last year. If they did, that's my bad. But they didn't have a good year last year. They're where they are now, which is they're a top 5 national seed. But Oral Roberts is really good. Jackson Lofton is a guy at the top of the lineup who is a big-bodied shortstop. He's a legitimate pro prospect. He hit 350 this year with 10 bombs and 25 bags. They have one of the better, if not the best, relatively, I think, unknown bullpen arms in the country with Cade Denton. His ERA is a minuscule 0.44, and that's not 11 innings. He's thrown 41 innings, 52 Ks to 11 walks, and a 160 opponent's batting average. And if there's going to be one guy to lead his team to victory over a 1 seed, especially given his name, it is Oral Roberts' ace, Legend Smith, who's their Friday guy. And so I've got Oral Roberts in an upset over Texas A&M.
Yes, let's get wild.
Also, we got to shout out Isaac Coffey, who's Dustin Demeter's cousin. Isaac is hitting 387. He's hit in 29 games. They mostly deploy him against lefties, but then on the mound, he's one of their leaders in innings pitched with 82. He actually is the leader in innings pitched, and he's got a 3.72 ERA, strikeout artist. He's a great player. He was great in high school, and he's going to continue to be great for Oral Roberts. Good two-way player to watch.
Yeah, I was going to say great call with Isaac Coffey. He was going to try and get him on the Katua Cavaliers a couple of years back, but YD swooped in and got him. But yeah, no, I have Oral Roberts actually beating Texas A&M. And then in that lower pod, I've got, the lower part of the bracket, just the 3-2 game. I've wrestled with this one because some weekends I've been really sold on TCU. They've looked like an Omaha team, and other weekends I haven't. And so it's all about which TCU team is going to show up. Are Elijah Nunez and Braden Taylor going to hit, or, are they going to maybe run into some issues? But when all said and done, I got TCU. They've got experience. This is a spot that they're used to being in. They're used to playing at Texas A&M. So I've got TCU and Oral Roberts. I actually don't have Texas A&M coming out of the losers bracket and winning this regional. I'm so tempted to say Oral Roberts.
We got to do it, Pete. They're winning.
Yeah, let's go with Oral Roberts.
Let's go with Oral Roberts.
Well, let's have Oral Roberts coming out of this region. And looking at this team, we talk about so much, and we've talked about it already on this show. Depth matters, this is a mid-major team that has depth. When we look at the mound with Legend Smith and Isaac Coffey, even other guys, they can pitch and they have offensive firepower. So you know what? We'll have Oral Roberts. I like Oral Roberts coming out of this region.
I'm in. It's very weird to see mid-major team with depth, because usually it's top heavy and you've got that one stud. Like look at Campbell and Zach Neto, right? Like it's going to be Neto or bust for Campbell versus Oral Roberts. There's some depth here. But going to the Louisville Regional, Louisville is the 1 seed there. Louisville overall is the 12 national seed. Oregon the 2, Michigan the 3, and Southeast Missouri State is the 4. There are a lot of massive names here with Louisville, Oregon, and Michigan. Who's the best of the massive names?
This one might come as a surprise with how quick I like Louisville in this regional, and I
Great.
don't think that they're going to have a particularly hard time coming out of this regional. SEMO is historically they're another mid-major team that is good, but Michigan got the automatic qualifier bid in the Big Ten, which is great. They're playing great baseball. Oregon's another team. The Pac-12 is probably the most polished conference in college baseball, given the style of play. They play a really professional brand of baseball, but I have Louisville coming out of here. They offensively, they've got Jack Payton, Isaac Humphrey, Christian Knapczyk will be back for them. And
love my guy Usher too.
Oh, Levi Usher, and their pitching staff has been sound all year. They haven't been, they don't have an ace like they did in years past necessarily, but they have enough guys that they can definitely get by in this regional. And so I've got Louisville coming out of here.
Yeah, I think Louisville is the easy answer. Pitching, hitting. They're just clearly, I think, the best team in this region. I think they roll.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Gainesville, Florida, 39-22. Oklahoma is the 2, Liberty the 3, Central Michigan is the 4. I'm pissed Central Michigan got into the field. I needed my Ball State Cardinals in. I thought Ball State could actually make some noise. I think Central could make some noise too. I've seen them play. I think they're a very solid team. I think Florida's really good though, and they've got the bats, and obviously they've got the sex appeal for the guys that liked the second round pick and Judd Fabian coming into the year. They've got guys.
Pete,
Yeah.
but just before, I have a question for you too, because for me, Florida is the big upset. Like, they're getting out of it early. Liberty already beat them 2 out of 3. I think Oklahoma is a fantastic baseball team. I think Florida is the big name that gets out early. Do you agree? Or you're like, no, Florida's going through this?
Spoiler alert, I'll take it even further. I actually, as I think about it more, and it contradicts what I said in the text chain and all this, I'll take Central Michigan beating them in that opening game.
That's what I'm talking about, Pete. I'm on the same wavelength.
With Andrew Taylor on the mound, he's another guy who's a mid-major ace. Jack probably knows all about him, but Andrew Taylor is a fantastic, legitimate pro prospect arm. And I think that he's going to come up huge for him. I think he's going to give him 7 to 8 good ones, maybe even go the distance. And if that offense can hang 4 or 5 runs for him, I think they win that baseball game. So I've got Central Michigan beating Florida, and you guys know all about my love, at least recently, for Oklahoma. So I've got Central Michigan and Oklahoma. I do probably think Florida comes out of that losers area with Liberty. I don't see them going over at their own field again. That would just be
that would suck.
That would speak volumes. And so I've got Oklahoma beating Florida to head to a super regional. I like Oklahoma a lot, not to jump ahead, but I think Oklahoma is playing great baseball. They're a complete team. They've got a top end draft prospect in Peyton Graham, among other guys. They're going to be a team that's hard to beat, and they should probably be hosting, but they're not, because the committee is the committee. But no, they're a fantastic team that I'm really excited about.
Cool. And then bottom of the left side, Virginia Tech is the number 4 national seed. They've got obviously a top 10 caliber guy in Gavin Cross, right? Either 41-12. Gonzaga is traditionally a baseball power. You don't have to stop watching Gonzaga sports after Chet Holmgren. Number 3 is Columbia, who's a very solid Ivy League team. They got the bid from the Ivy. And then Wright State is the 4. They're a traditional Horizon League power. Virginia Tech is really good. I know a lot of people thought like borderline best team in the country for a little bit.
Yeah, no, this region, again, I'll be quick like Louisville. I think that Virginia Tech got a relatively generous draw.
So generous.
Yeah, Gonzaga is probably actually the best pitching team in the region, with Kempner and Hughes and Vreeling on the mound, which are 3 guys who will probably be top 3 round draft picks. Hughes and Kempner probably day 1. But I don't see Virginia Tech having too many issues. Again, they can hit, like you said, with Gavin Cross, Cade Hunter, Jack Hurley, Carson DeMartini, Tanner Show. Like, this is a really interesting team. And the more I talk about it, the more I get sold on them, and they can pitch too, with Drew Hackenberg leading the way for them. So I've got Virginia Tech coming out of here. I think Wright State obviously is a team that is used to going on the road in regionals. They kind of run the Horizon League, and they can hit. But I think Virginia Tech is just that good, and I think they kind of roll through this regional in impressive fashion too, because I think that they're gonna have to go up against one of Vreeling, Hughes, or Kempner. Probably, I'd say probably Kempner. And they'll have to go up against him. And I think they beat him. I don't think Gonzaga has enough offensive firepower to kind of hit with Virginia Tech for a sustainable 9 innings. So I've got Virginia Tech coming out of here.
Yeah, Pete, this is Christmas morning for Virginia Tech. I mean, this is the easiest draw. The only reason I didn't say that this was the easiest group of 4 is because of how good Virginia Tech is. But to make the Gonzaga the 2, I get it because of the pitching. But then to put Columbia and Wright State in there, like, this is pretty weak. I say Virginia Tech doesn't lose a game. Like, they're just going to roll through. They're so good.
I couldn't agree more.
All right, let's go to the right side. But before we do that, Peter Apple, how impressed are you with Peter Flaherty's just ability to like recall all these names?
I love it so much because I forget the names and I enjoy college baseball. I've been keeping track, of course, as the MLB season started. I've transitioned a lot of it, but we
got the expert here, man.
But literally, he's an expert, and he's just jogging my mind too, helping me remember things. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's a dictionary of college baseball right now.
I love it.
I appreciate it. I do have a little notes app cheat sheet going here, but
don't tell us that.
Yeah, why'd you? Now the interview's over.
I'll cut it out. That part.
Yeah, we can edit it in post.
I've been bringing out midweek scores and K Denton's whip, and I've just been. I got them just right in the back of my mind.
God, let's go. All right, Palo Alto. Stanford is the they're the number 2 national seed. Stanford is a wagon at the moment. They're 41-14. Texas State is the 2. UC Santa Barbara is the 3. Binghamton has a long ass flight across the country as the 4 seed. Stanford's really strong, right?
Okay. Pete.
Yeah. And,
go ahead.
No, you go, if you want to go for it, Pete, I
only wanted to ask the quick question. Please tell me UCSB is beating Texas State, because then they're going to go play Stanford. And then they're going to lose because Brock Jones looks like Mike Trout, but UCSB is beating Texas State. Come on.
Hasn't Brock Jones had a rough year?
Brock picked it up. He started off slow, but if you look at the Stanford lineup and the Stanford team recently, everyone is hitting. Everyone is hitting and everyone is pitching. They are collectively playing probably the best baseball of anyone in the country right now. Probably other than Tennessee, but everyone is hitting the best they have. Drew Bowser is looking like the Drew Bowser they got out of high school, who they were lucky to get to campus. On the mound, they have tons of aces. They've got Alex Williams. Drew Dowd is way better than his numbers suggest. And then their lineup, like you said, it's Brock Jones, who started off slow, but I mean, he when he's hot, he hits as well as anyone. So
yeah, we said started off slow, and then now he's hitting 330 with an 1100 OPS. So
that's what I'm talking about. He looks like Mike Trout, and he's thick, and he's a linebacker, and he plays football too.
Hey, he was a safety. Athletic. He was a safety, and he quit football.
Oh, he quit football? I didn't know he quit.
And he started for him. Yeah. So no, I've got, and not to look ahead, I think Stanford not only has a reasonably favorable draw in this regional, because I think that UCSB throws their ace, Corey Lewis, in the first game to beat a quality Texas State team. But in looking a little bit ahead, I think Stanford's got a really, really good draw for their Omaha aspirations. Aside from how they're playing is great alone, but I think with the matchups and how they can line up this pitching, and they don't have to travel anywhere. And whoever they get out of that other regional is going to have to take a long flight across the country. So I think they're in really good position to make a deep run at this thing.
Good point. And I love that we're laying the groundwork here in the regionals, so we can just quickly go through the matchups and the supers and give you the 8 teams that are going to Omaha. Maryland is hosting in College Park. They're the 1. They're 45-12. Wake is the 2. Uconn Holy crap. Uconn is 46-13. And then LIU is the 4 there. Maryland, who just threw that perfect game a couple weeks ago?
Ryan Ramsey. I think he's a redshirt sophomore, lefty pitcher. He's a great arm and a perfect game, obviously. So they're a great team, I think, obviously, with the season they put together. But one note is UConn a 3 at 46-13. I think
they're going to
win. A team to host in the Big East eventually, they're either going to have to leave or they're going to have to put up like a Tennessee record, because they won 46 games. Yeah, their RPI wasn't there. The Big East isn't amazing, but they won the Big East again pretty handily. They won 46 games, and they're a 3 seed, not even a 2 seed. That's tough. But with that being said, oh man, I don't want to go like with the trendy upset heavy. This isn't too big of an upset. I actually have Wake Forest coming out of here.
Really?
I like them a lot. They've got Rhett Lauder, Teddy McGraw on the mound. That's their kind of 1-2 punch. With guys to supplement that with Cam Manassi out of the bullpen, Seth Keener, Gabe Golub, who's a redshirt senior with experience. And then their lineup can really, really hit. Tommy Hawk is a little spark plug up at the top. He's like 5'7", but he's hitting 380. He's just a pure slash guy. Brock Wilkin, Nick Kurtz, Brendan Tinsman. I like this team a lot, and I think they make it out of the College Park Regional to have a date in Palo Alto.
Cool. Pete, we'll put Wake Forest in there because you know better than I. But me personally, when I was filling out this bracket, I had UConn having the upset over Wake Forest and then making it past Maryland. They have the 4th best strikeout to walk ratio in the entire Division I. They have the pitching to make it, and they have the hitting to get it together. I have UConn making it past Maryland and past Wake Forest. We can go with Wake Forest if you like. I just wanted to. I'm all over UConn. I think they got the pitching to do it.
What you said, and literally, it was a coin flip in my head until I literally said I've got Wake Forest, because it was UConn or Wake Forest for me. And I think, again, if we want to make this 3-2 matchup, if we want to make it a big one, similar to Texas Tech and Notre Dame, I think that whoever wins this one wins the regional too.
Me too.
So I think it could go either way. And that UConn Wake game is going to be a great game, I think. At least I hope so. It'd be disappointing if it weren't.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I have, man.
I'll stick with your gut.
I'll stick with Wake. You go with UConn, but I'll stand by the fact that whoever wins that game is going to win the regional.
I believe you over me.
Yeah.
I believe Pete Flaherty over Peter Apple, but don't be surprised if Peter Apple pulls something out of his hat. That's all I gotta say.
It's not gambling advice, right? All right.
Not bracket advice.
Yeah, not bracket advice. Chapel Hill, Carolina is the 1 at 38-19. Carolina was the number 10 national seed. Georgia is the 2, VCU the 3, Hofstra the 4. We saw Georgia play in the SEC tournament. Arm and I did in Hoover, and I guess they were kind of impressive. They had those twins that were fine, but I don't know. Maybe we just didn't see their best arms. Like they were not too hot, and they're a 2 here. It feels like a week 2.
Yeah, no, I think that they're a good team. They have some pieces. You guys saw. I think Jaden Woods is a good arm for him. Yeah. I think Corey Collins is a fantastic player. He may have not stood out in Hoover, but he's got capability. I just think that they're an above average team, but I think UNC, especially, I sound like a broken record, but coming into the tournament hot is such a big key to it.
Massive.
And playing your best baseball. And UNC was a bubble team not even 3 weeks ago. People were talking about whether or not UNC was going to get in this thing. And then they just, all hell broke loose, and everyone's clicking, and Vance Honeycutt is the guy that makes that team go. And he's got an elite name.
Yeah.
Elite.
He put up a 2020 season. Their pitching is finally starting to show the depth that people thought. And I've got UNC winning this regional, but I do have VCU beating Georgia. I have UNC and VCU going up in that 1-0 game, and I've got UNC winning the regional.
Sweet. Love it. Peter, what you think, Carolina?
UNC is going to roll. No doubt.
All right. How about the Pokes in Stillwater? Oklahoma State's the 1. Arkansas is the 2. They started screaming hot, then they cooled off a little bit. Grand
Pete.
Canyon at 41-19 is the 3. Missouri State is the 4. Missouri State, another traditional power, much like Dallas Baptist, that might be on the downswing. This is a good regional.
Similar to Texas, you and I fell in love with Arkansas early on, but Oklahoma State, I think, is going to beat them.
You know what? I do think that it's going to be a great regional championship game with Arkansas and Oklahoma State. I do think that Arkansas gets by Grand Canyon. And I think Oklahoma State's similarly with Mo State, but Oklahoma State and Stillwater,
I know
they're a team on a mission. I know they've really been wanting to break that Omaha seal for a while now. And this is the team to do it. They've got Justin Campbell, Trevor Martin. Offensively, they've got.
You
Marcus
could go on.
Brown.
I mean, they're so loaded, and Oklahoma State. It just sucks because I have Arkansas for a future. I have a future bet on them, but I don't see how they get past Oklahoma State. Especially in Stillwater, I think they roll.
Yeah, I've got Oklahoma State with you. We align. I've got Oklahoma State beating Arkansas in a really well played regional championship game.
Coral Gables, Miami is the 1, Arizona the 2, Ole Miss the 3, and Canisius the 4. I made a joke about Canisius before we started recording, and Peter Flaherty, again, with the master recall. I chose the wrong guy. I said, who really needs to know about the second baseman at Canisius? And you said that the second baseman at Canisius is actually kicking ass so far this year.
Yeah, no, Canisius is really good. And you know what? This is like, I'm debating saying it because it's such a weird fact that I know, but the Golden Griffins of Canisius, they recruit Canada really well. No, I'm not even kidding. Max Grant, the second baseman that we unintentionally referenced at the start of the show, he's a freaking legit bat and a legit player. He's from up north, and their best freshman pitcher and their best arm in general, Peyton Consigli, I think his name is. He's also from Ontario. He's a 6'5" righty, who's been their best pitcher. So Canisius has a bright future, and they're great for a Northeast program, but they got to make the flight down to Coral Gables, hostile environment in Miami.
I feel like we can move past that one. There's no way they're beating Miami.
Yeah. No, I've got Miami both against Canisius, and I think I've got Miami against the winner of Ole Miss in Arizona.
Okay, but think about this for a second. I feel like I'm shitting on Florida baseball because I said Florida is the odd man out in their group of 4. I think the winner of Arizona versus Ole Miss is going to beat Miami.
I like that a lot.
Back on Arizona, I still believe in Ole Miss. You know, I still have, of course, another future on Ole Miss to win the College World Series.
Plays too many futures.
I know I have plenty of futures. There was just so many teams that I liked, and I've been following them all year. I think Arizona is freaking loaded. I think Ole Miss is loaded. I do think both of those teams can beat Miami. I would side with Arizona beating Ole Miss and then Arizona beating Miami. But you don't see eye to eye.
No, that you sold me again. How you sold me on, I think, our first episode. You sold me on, I think, Oklahoma State being in your top 5.
So good.
You got me on Arizona now too.
They're amazing.
Yeah, and it was a debate in my head too, because I think that Miami gets by Canisius, and I think for as fortunate Ole Miss is to get into the tournament, and they've got a great team. They were number 1 for a reason, and they were able to sustain a pretty good start to the year. Well, actually, they weren't able to sustain it, but they proved they can play good baseball for a 2-week period. But I do have Arizona. I think that they are a really good team with Susac and Chase Davis.
Yeah.
And TJ Nichols, who's another guy whose stuff is way better than his numbers demonstrate. He's been getting hit a little bit this year, but if they get the ace TJ Nichols that everyone's been expecting and they've seen a little bit in doses, I think that's a great way to set the tone. So you know what? I've got Arizona coming out of here as well.
Damn, Pete. How about that? Peter Applesway and Pete Flaherty. This is not what I signed up for. I signed up for a Q&A with the expert. All right, let's go to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Had a great lunch in Hattiesburg last week. Southern Miss is the one, 43-16. LSU might be the best two in the country. They're 38-20. Kennesaw State is the 3. West Point is the 4. We know how much talent LSU has. A lot of it is offensively. Do they have the type of offense to combat Southern Miss's pitching?
Yeah. LSU, I think that if we were talking again pre-show about Southern Miss's pitching and how good they are, and with being a Conference USA team, a mid-major team, they're obviously going to be slept on. They have the staff, and I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but they have the staff, and I know Peter Apple is bullish on them as well, to make it to Omaha. We saw it early. Everyone was very much in on Southern Miss. They were as high as number 3 in the country. They got off to that roaring start, dropped a couple Conference USA series, and people are kind of like, hey, maybe this team isn't, they're a great team, but maybe they're not the Omaha team we thought they were. I don't know if they get to Omaha, but man, if they could win this region with scoring, I think less than 15 runs in 3 games.
Literally.
Their pitching is that good with Tanner Hall, Hurston Waldrop out of the bullpen. They've got Landon Harper, Dalton Rogers, Isaiah Rhodes. They're a really well put together pitching staff. And, I'm curious to see who they use against Army, because Army's a good team. And I know that you want to line up your pitching. I know that they're going to want to have their guys ready for LSU, because that's an offense that's up there with the Georgia Techs and the Tennessees of the world. But I think they get by a good Army team. And then I think that they've got enough pitching to combat LSU's offense. I really do. I think between Waldrop and Hall, whoever they have going in that game too, assuming they win, if they lose, they're screwed, because I don't think that they can make it out of the losers bracket. But I think they've got enough to hold LSU at bay being 3 to 4 runs. And they've got, I think, just enough hitting to maybe scrape together 4 or 5 runs themselves to win that game. And again, I think they win this regional scoring like 15 to 18 runs. I
agree. Pete, Southern Miss is the team that I, like you said, are so incredibly bullish on. They are the number 1 team in all of baseball, in all of Division I baseball, in strikeout to walk rate. Unbelievable pitching staff. I think behind Tennessee, this is the second best pitching staff in the country. I think they're go, and then I think they're going to beat Arizona too. Southern Miss is going to be kind of my pick to go as far as possible. I love this team. I think they're going to roll.
Yeah, and if you look at Hurston Waldrop, Tanner Hall is obviously, I'd say if you just look at the straight numbers, he's the best arm on the staff. But if you look at Waldrop pitch and his stuff, he's got the best stuff on the staff, and I'd put him up against anyone in the country. If you look at his delivery, it's eerily similar to Jack Leiter. It's that up tempo, kind of really powerful in the lower half delivery, with elite stuff. He's been up to 102. And that's not like rearing back and firing. He can pitch at probably 96 to 99 for a while. And his slider is just, it's a plus
pitching wins championships, and they got it.
Yeah. And the more I talk about it, the more I get sold on this team. So
right.
no, I've got Southern Miss coming out of Hattiesburg.
Let's go.
Fair. All right. Auburn is the 1 seed. They're 37-19. UCLA might've just used up all their runs in the Pac-12 tournament in that one day against Oregon State. So we'll see, but UCLA is the 2, Florida State, the 3, Southeastern Louisiana, who is a traditional mid-major power, is the 4. Sonny DeShera bangs. He absolutely bangs. We'll see what he can do at his home ballpark.
Certified banger.
Parker Messick, he can only throw once, right?
But the whole staff is so good.
I don't know if anyone's going to like by Pete's reception of that comment, he might like this pick, but I've got Florida State winning this regional. I think that UCLA is coming into this tournament.
Gassed.
They're a little banged. Yep. They're a little banged up and gassed. They're going to be without Jake Brooks, Max Ratchick. Cody Schreier also didn't play in the last couple of Pac-12 games. So I don't know what the status is with him. And no doubt they're a good team. They've got Ethan Flanagan, Alonzo Treadwell. They've got a fantastic young core. And if we talk this time next year, I think UCLA could be a top 8 national seed, but I've got Florida State. I think that they can hit enough. They can cobble together enough hitting between guys like James Tibbs, Brett Roberts, Jaime Ferrer, and Alex Terrell to make a run at this thing. And their pitching is one we were really bullish on now and at their intro podcast to the college baseball season. Messick and Hubbard were Messick and Hubbard this year. They've got a great freshman in Connor Whitaker.
Yep.
And I think that they make it out of this region. I like their pitching a lot, and I like their lineup a lot, and I think they match up well with all these teams. So I'll take the Noles.
Pete,
right,
I freaking love you. I just want to apologize to Florida baseball because I have shit on Miami and Florida, but I'm so far in on Florida State. They're going to beat Auburn. They're going to beat UCLA, and they're going to make some noise.
How about that, man? All right, let's wrap in Corvallis because we talk about long flights. The Whistler's going to have to make a very long flight to Corvallis, Oregon here. Oregon State's the one at 44-15. The Vandy boys are the 2 seed. The 3 is San Diego. The 4 is New Mexico State. New Mexico State 24-32. No more Nikki G for them. But Peter Flaherty, before we get into what happens in this regional, how much do you hate the Whistler on the scale of 1 to 10?
You know what? I'll take the good guy answer. I don't hate anyone. I strongly dislike the Whistler though at a 9.5.
Okay, cool.
It's people talk about it all the time. Like, oh man, so-and-so's on the broadcast. I got to mute it. So-and-so's doing this. I got to mute the TV. No one actually like mutes the TV. I mute the TV with when the Vandy Whistler is humming along. So I'll be watching that game on mute with closed captions. And yeah.
The thing is, Vanderbilt's going to lose because Oregon State's going to roll through this group of 4, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're speaking my language because I think that while no matter what, Vanderbilt's always tough to bet against with. I'm the coaching staff guy, but I do think that Tim Corbin makes a huge difference for that team and with his experience and knowledge of the game. And they do have a lot of talent. I just think Oregon State is very, very, very good. And I
They could
think
win the whole thing.
And they're going to have Jerpy in that game too, because they're not throwing him against New Mexico State. And they can really hit with guys like Justin Boyd, Jacob Melton, Garrett Forrester, Travis Bazana. Yeah. I've got Oregon State winning this region like you, Pete. And I've got them beating Vandy. And don't sleep on San Diego in that first game. They won the WAC, obviously, to I think steal a bid because they wouldn't have gotten in as an at-large because Gonzaga did. But Bryson Motts is a really good left-handed pitcher they've got. He's getting some draft buzz. He's any good lefty is always tough to hit against. I don't know if they've got the bats maybe aside from Kevin Sim, Chase Meadroth, and Jack Costello to keep up with Vandy. But if Bryson Motts gives them a good outing, you could say that about any pitcher giving a team a good outing, but Bryson Motts has a legit chance to beat Vanderbilt in that first game. I don't have the balls to pick it, but keep an eye on that. But I've got Oregon State.
Hey man, if JT Brubaker gives the Pirates a good outing against the Dodgers, they can win a game.
Actually, and when you have Jerpy, as in my opinion, he's the best pitcher in college baseball, along with one of the best offenses in baseball. This Oregon State team, we're about to get to our picks. I don't think they're a bad pick to win it all. I really don't.
Yeah. Hey, well, no spoiler alerts.
Let's get to the picks.
I like that pick a lot.
Let's get to that.
Okay, let's fly through the supers. And Peter Flaherty, my working plan is to have you on right before Omaha to talk about the 8 teams. So we can save our national title pick, or you can give it to us. But
I'll give it now, and I'll give a revised one too. I'll give a cop out. Hopefully my pick is still standing. I think it will be.
Perfect. Okay. We'll go rapid fire here through these regional winners. To get to Omaha in the super regional, this would line up in Knoxville, Tennessee, and Notre Dame. Does Tennessee win it in 2 or 3?
2.
Tennessee in 2.
Okay. So Tennessee first.
Same page, Pete.
Yeah.
Texas and Virginia. This would be in Austin.
Wahoo wah in 3.
Wow. Okay. Virginia, baby.
Yeah, I think so too.
The 4 seed Oral Roberts and Louisville. This would happen in Louisville. Don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah, fair.
The Cinderella run ends.
In 3. We'll say 3.
Yeah.
In 3, easily. Hard fought, extra innings.
Oklahoma and Virginia Tech in Blacksburg.
Oklahoma. I love Oklahoma. I talk about them in the group chat all the time. Everyone gets annoyed. I talk about them on here. They're awesome. And Virginia Tech is a great team, but Oklahoma's playing with their hair on fire, and I think they make it to Omaha.
Peter Apple, you're going to push back right now, and don't do it because Peter Flaherty just said Oklahoma so quickly.
Okay. I just really like Virginia Tech. I like that. I like the pick. I like Virginia Tech, but I respect Oklahoma. They're also awesome.
But to Pete's point, though, I love Virginia Tech and Oklahoma might be my 2 biggest, I guess, crushes in this tournament. Tennessee is obviously Tennessee, so that doesn't count. But I hate that they got matched up because I'd have Virginia Tech and Omaha if they were matched up probably against anyone else other than Oklahoma and Tennessee.
Yeah.
And Oregon State.
All right. Stanford and Wake.
Stanford. I think that their depth reigns supreme. Wake is going to probably come out a little beat up of College Park on a long flight. And Stanford's going to be refreshed. So I think Stanford gets back to Omaha.
In 2. This would be an interesting one. Carolina and Oklahoma State in Stillwater.
The Pokes break the seal. I think they get to Omaha.
All right. Easy.
What about you, Pete? If we're breezing through these too fast,
Oklahoma State.
More in depth, but
Oklahoma. No, I like how we're going right now. Oklahoma State, because we went through everything. Oklahoma State.
We got the primer on everybody. They can go back.
Yeah, I was going to say Justin Campbell will still be good in a super regional.
Agreed.
If anybody's going to stop being good from the regional to the super, let us know before we move on. Arizona and Southern Miss. This would be in Hattiesburg.
Oh.
But listen, we talk about how good the starting rotation is. That lines up really well for them in a super, right?
With this matchup, it's interesting because
Arizona can really hit.
Yeah. And Arizona's pitching might not be,
Southern Miss, Pete. Say it, Pete. Southern Miss. Please.
Are they in Hattiesburg? Yeah, they're in Hattiesburg. I'll take Southern Miss in 3. I think they make it to, I legitimately think, and granted, they either probably get bounced round 1 or everyone's like, Southern Miss's offense came out of nowhere. But I think Southern Miss makes it to Omaha scoring 5, which in college is nothing. They probably make it to Omaha scoring 5 runs a game.
That's amazing.
So I got them.
All right. Florida State and Oregon State. This would happen in Corvallis.
Oregon State, I think, in a tough 2. I think it'll be a sweep, but I don't think it's going to be wow, Oregon State coasted by FSU.
I love the term tough 2. That's awesome. All right. 8 teams in Omaha in our provisional bracket brought to you by Peter Flaherty. Tennessee, Virginia, Louisville, Oklahoma, Stanford, Oklahoma State, Southern Miss, and Oregon State. Who's winning it? I'll go first because I probably know the least. Tennessee is 53-7. Is it 1 through 9, all with 10+ bombs this year?
I think it might even be higher than that. Actually, you know what? Their leadoff guy, Seth Stevenson, has 5. But if you watch him play, he plays way bigger than he is.
So 8 guys in their lineup have 10+ bombs?
I think it's 8. Yeah. And it might even be 12+.
Dude.
Blake Burke, their 8 hitter, has 12 and 75 at bats.
Dude. Peter Apple, who you think?
I mean, it's of course we can pick Tennessee. Tennessee's the best team in this. They had as many earned runs as home runs this year at 141, which is just incredible. Pete brought that stat into our baseball group chat. We posted on TikTok. It got 750,000 views because of how insane.
Big numbers guy. You hear that?
Numbers guy. Analytics
the numbers.
Guy.
I love it.
I will just be different. I will be different. And I think the winner between Oregon State and Oklahoma State is going to win this. And I'm going to go with Oregon State winning the entire thing, or Oklahoma State. I want to pick either one of those two.
And the 8 that we have, there's an argument to be made, obviously, for Tennessee, Oregon State, of course, but there's even an argument to be made for Stanford.
I know.
You could argue even for a tougher one to be made, I guess, for Louisville and Oklahoma. But you know what? I thought about being different and actually going with Stanford. I'm really loving how they're playing right now, and they're used to that Omaha setting. It's just so hard to envision a team beating Tennessee twice. Kentucky did it, but they walked into Lexington, I think, just half asleep. They just weren't really present in that series, and they kind of walked out of there being like, "Oh, we lost that series," and then they
never lost again.
They went 4-0 in Hoover. So I've got Tennessee. I just think that there's no weak spot. There's no worry about using arms. There's no they've got not only a great 1 through 9, they've got a great 10 and 11 off the bench that they can play with matchups hitting wise. So I have Tennessee winning it all. It's just damn near impossible to pick against them.
So I'll take the field, and I'm officially going with Oregon State. I think Oregon State wins it in Omaha.
Okay. Tennessee versus the field. I like Tennessee versus the field because we've got 2 for Tennessee and 1 for the field.
Yeah. I'll take the field. Everyone else. And I might be wrong. That's how good Tennessee is.
Well, naturally.
Yeah. I was going to say, I'm curious to see in our Omaha primer episode, who these 8 end up being, because obviously there's a chance it's all 8. There's a chance that we're sitting here talking about like Arkansas, Ole Miss, UCLA,
Central Michigan,
and Florida, heaven forbid.
Southeast Louisiana.
Yeah, damn right. So, all right, this was perfect. Peter Flaherty, the man. We can't wait to talk to you before Omaha, but this should serve as your primer for the regionals that start tomorrow. Sit down, be a vegetable on the couch, and just watch college baseball all weekend long. This is the one weekend that I think people should be exempt from watching Major League Baseball.
I know that's my plan, and thanks so much for having me on, guys. It's always a great time chopping it up with you guys and talking about all these great teams, and I'm excited to see how it all shakes out and where we stand in a few weeks.
You're the man, Pete. We love talking college baseball with you. And to wrap up, make sure you download the Loop app. That is in our episode link description as well. You get a free $20 playing with our friends at Loop. Bunch of baseball cards. I just got a new shipment of my Loop cards because I can't stop buying packs in there because it's so freaking fun. As well as join our chalkboard group chat. That's in our episode description as well. And make sure you subscribe to all the different podcasts across the Just Baseball Network, whether that be State of the Division podcast. I'm just getting to it. The Boys of Spring podcast, our college baseball pod, which is churning out a bunch of episodes. They were just live on our YouTube, breaking down Selection Sunday, as well as Not Gambling Advice, my fantasy baseball podcast, as well as the Call Up, where Arm is breaking down all the podcasts. Jack is on that a ton too. We have a bunch of podcasts on the network, and make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel as well, because we're pushing out all the videos on there. Of course, we love that you listen on audio. If you could leave a 5-star review, or if you're on YouTube, let us know.
Take a breath now. Deep breath.
You got it all covered.
I can keep going. I can keep going.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Prospects, college, pro, state of the division. You can listen to any of these podcasts and get your fix.
Yeah. And with that, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.